Right, guys. Okay, I was just saying to Dougie as we were about to come on that hopefully something wasn't going to go disastrously wrong. Thankfully, it hasn't. But as you can see, to my I've got it right this time. To my right, Dougie Critchley, one and only from Sky Sports, says kindly agreed to donate some of his time for us. So Dougie, just ignore the fact we've talked off camera for a few minutes, but I'll ask you again: are you doing okay?
I'm doing very well, thanks, Michael. Yeah, really well indeed. I was playing a bit of football last night, so I missed the England thrashing of Wales. Pretty comfortable in the first 20 minutes. They kind of had it all wrapped up. I'm missing Sunderland this weekend. I feel like, I've just been loving the season so far. So it's a little bit of a shame to have another international break. But yeah, it's a great time to reflect on what has been a magnificent start to the season for the lads. How are you, Mikey?
I am not doing too badly. So I was just messaging a friend of mine who's from that lot up the road, the dark side. But I was but he actually likes watching your work actually. So I was
Oh,
saying to him, I managed to get you on. No, I'm doing all right. Funnily enough, this is going to sound totally random, but on my screen, I've got like the PS5 hooked up and I've got YouTube, and for some reason I just randomly put the full game of Hull Sheffield United on, and it got me
nice.
thinking about how that one pass from Kiefer Moore and goal from Watson has completely flipped everything for both clubs, and it's quite frightening actually when you look at where Sheffield United are and you think, Jesus, I didn't think we would do as bad as them if we hadn't have gone up, but it got me thinking how if we'd lost that playoff final, how different our team would look right now. But long story short, I'm doing all right. But yes, I was just thinking, holy crap! Like, look where they are, and look where we are.
I know, it's nuts, isn't it? It was a real sliding doors moment. I tweeted the same thing about 10 days ago. Just the fact that, it wasn't the most, it was a pretty even playoff final for large parts of it. I think Sunderland probably across the final 40 minutes, maybe even most of the second half, were on top in that game. And no one was begrudging Sunderland going up. I think most neutrals also wanted Sunderland back in the Premier League rather than Sheffield United, who had two recent shots at it and not really made it that
Yeah.
competitive. But yeah, job done. We got up there. I mean, if even that more pass you talk about, but even if Anthony Patterson hadn't made that amazing save, 70 seconds in, how different things could have been as well. An amazing moment. And given how well Roofs has played, it's easy to forget just how important that performance from Patterson was, because we probably wouldn't be where we are without it.
And remember as well, I think what was it, the 70? It was like 5 minutes before Mayenda scored. He made a great save from tying Andre Brooks one-on-one as well. So
Exactly.
for me, I kind of viewed the playoff final as that Sheffield United were easily the better side until the VAR decision to disallow the goal. Then it was in kind of even middle third of the game, and then I thought the last half an hour we dominated personally. But it's amazing how things can just flip. But I mean, even if you look at, I mean, not to make it too much about the championship. So if you want to watch my stream yesterday with Matt SB, go and watch that. We talk a bit about the championship. But long story short, I basically, when you still look at Sheffield United's squad, and it was full of players I would have loved to have had at Sunderland last season, and you think, Jesus, that's bottom of the championship. And you go, wow. And especially with what's going on at Sheffield Wednesday as well. So it's funny how Sheffield Wednesday are above Sheffield United, but I doubt that's going to finish the case. But you never know, do you? So but yeah, well, to move on to talk about Sunderland stuff. Yeah, I mean, for the best. I mean, I've asked you this off air as well, even though I'm giving everything away pretty much here. But we can't complain with our start of the season, can we? Obviously, when you look at, I can imagine you, like me, thought left Wembley thinking get in, we're promoted. But I kind of looked at it as worst case scenario: if we go down, we come back down loaded with parachute payments. Obviously, I don't want that. I want us to stay up, but that still is. We still have to remember it's a long way to go. But let's start with the summer window. I mean, how, as someone who has to keep a respectable, neutral head on to talk about the summer business for everyone, how difficult was it for you to sort of balance that with being a bit giddy about how players like, Granit Xhaka, that we were actually signing, and still pinch myself to this day that we have signed him? But how do you feel we approached the summer? Because I think we approached it the best way we could have done. I don't think there was much more we could have signed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just on the playoff final, I think the record of sides going up via the playoffs isn't particularly good. It's obviously terrible in the Premier League in the last two seasons. All six sides going straight back down,
The last
going
two
up via
playoff
the
final winners went down, didn't they? Luton and Southampton, I believe.
yeah, exactly. And going up via the playoffs gives you even less time.
Mhm.
Joe
Yeah.
Bellingham's move to Dortmund was sorted out pretty soon after. We obviously knew that Watson was already leaving. So there was a lot to do. And despite the fact that, I really enjoyed our time in the championship and massive respect to the players that got us out of the championship, it did kind of feel like to survive at Premier League level and then thrive at Premier League level, you could almost replace every single member, or at least probably 9 or 10 of that starting 11 in the final. And so for Sunderland to be so decisive and ruthless and manage to
Yeah.
secure a number of players with a range of different experiences. I think Gisolfi coming in as sporting director as well, the contacts he's got
Yeah.
clearly in France and Belgium, that was really helpful. Christian Speakman, amazing EFL contact book, but I think he's even said, having someone with his reputation was such an addition. And then managing to persuade, we talk about Granit Xhaka, but I think he is the kind of key to this whole window, securing someone that was thriving at a Champions League club, that had won the league and cup the year before unbeaten, that Bayer Leverkusen were desperate to keep hold of, that had an offer from Saudi Arabia on the table as well. And we managed to persuade him to come to Sunderland, a club that he won't actually know that much about. I think we crossed over for one season in the Premier League in his first year at Arsenal before we were relegated and then relegated again, of course. So you could even see by some of those introductory videos, like he didn't know that much history about Sunderland. He didn't even know too much about his teammates. I think there might have also been an element of it was a long sort of day of press, no doubt, and maybe he just wasn't that enthusiastic in that particular moment. But either way, ever since the first ball has been kicked this season, it's just been such an inspiration. And you can see from his social media, which I'm fully locked in on at the moment, that he is just absolutely loving it. And I think he was the key to the likes of Mukiele arriving, who spent last season on loan at Bayer Leverkusen, Alderete, all these players that we brought in that have clearly raised the level of that first team so dramatically. I don't think they necessarily come without Granit Xhaka. So yes, we spent a lot of money, and I thought we'd probably recoup more money in terms of outgoing players, and maybe that will be something that we address in January and next summer, because there does feel like a pretty large squad right now. But up until the final few days with Brian Brobby and Bertrand Traore coming in, we are still so active, and they have really given us a magnificent chance of staying up. There's no guarantee we do, but what a start and what a window.
Yeah, I mean, there's no... I mean, like I said, I think I'm with you. I did think we would spend money because we had to. Like, and like we talked earlier, like even someone like Anthony Patterson, who has his critics, that some things he can work on, obviously. But for me, I think he is a better goalkeeper than some of our fans think he is. Having said that, but I also view him as and this might sound harsh, but I view, and feel free to disagree if you feel differently, but I view him as a playoff level championship keeper. And I think to get promoted, when we got promoted, I thought we might have to be ruthless and or ruthless, to make a really bad dad joke. But like at the end of the day, being serious, we had to be ruthless, because if you have too much sentimentality in the Premier League, as you will know from covering it for so long, it eats you up relentlessly. And something that I think has got to be praised for, and I think Gisolfi, obviously his name probably doesn't get mentioned enough, and I'm someone who's defended Speakman a lot, and there has been mistakes from Speakman, from KLD, from Stuart Harvey. KLD in particular, I've been a big critic of in the past before, but like the lot of them have sort of come together and have really given us the best shot we can of staying up. And I think now, even if we go down from this position, I don't think there can be anyone of our fans who really could argue that they haven't gone for it, because I think that they have. They've had to, and I think what's helped us is the fact that we've had the PSR wiggle room with the fact we haven't earned the Premier League money Leeds and Burnley have in the last couple of years, for example, but we also won't have lost anywhere near as much of them, considering we were in league. So I think it's a rolling 3-year period, isn't it? So I think it's like the last 3 completed seasons, that would have been the 3 championship seasons, I think. But obviously we don't have access to the accounts for 24-25 yet. But the point is that, look, I think we couldn't have done as much as we could, much more than we did do. And I agree with you on your point about Xhaka, because without that signing, with that signing, I think it's encouraged more players to go, hang on a minute, I fancy going to Sunderland now. I mean, maybe I'm arrogant. I think people should fancy coming to us anyway, within reason. Obviously, someone's not going to pick us over like Liverpool or someone. I'm not that daft, but like, I mean, like, it's amazing what that one signing could do. As quickly going to Carl's comment, he said, next 2 games, 4 points. That includes Chelsea away, mate. So I think I would just get a good result against Wolves. I'm viewing Chelsea and Arsenal and everything else as a bonus, but we will get on to the fixtures. But as far as the start of the season's concerned, what is it? 7 games, I think it is. 11 points in. Now, I'm well aware Sunderland are the team to break curses and statistics and records, but you can probably guess what I'm going to say. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but is it right that if it's within the first 10 games, you get 11 points as a promoted side, you are very unlikely to get relegated? Am I right in that, or am I way off?
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think I saw it the other day that only 3 sides in Premier League history have got this many points and then gone down with it. And it was a record, a joint record in the last 12 years, along with West Ham. No side since West Ham in 2012-13 had got more points after 6 games amongst newly promoted sides. And that was a side that never really should have been in the Championship, a club that had invested so heavily in numerous seasons before that, West Ham. So for Sunderland to come up, having never really got very close to automatic promotion by the end of the season. I know last year it looked like we might do before fading to 4th. And we were as close to 17th place Oxford United last year than we were Leeds and Burnley. So there was a huge gap. So to manage to persuade the players that we did to join us and look so organised and compact and disciplined and just purely effective in 7 games, I think is a huge, huge credit, especially given the fact that we didn't just do all our business in June and July. It was kind of spread out through the entire window. It was every few days we were announcing a new signing. So it can't have been easy for the coaching staff.
Look at you, Fabrizio Romano.
Yeah, it can't have been easy for the coaching staff and manager, obviously, to get a unified group so quickly. But massive, massive credit to Lebris and the whole coaching staff and the whole organisation, because it seems like we've signed the right characters as well. A lot of players that do have experience at the top level, like Ronaldo, although obviously really foolish in that game against Villa, and Xhaka, as we've already mentioned, Alderete being the Liga team of the season last year. But then these players like Siddiqui and Talbi and Diarra that have big reputations, but something to prove. And joining a club like Sunderland, yes, it's not the Liverpools that we've already mentioned, but it's an amazing club to join. Passionate city, passionate football area, massive stadium, great place to sort of show your skills to the masses, and an upwardly mobile club that seems to be run so much more effectively than it was the last time Sunderland were in the Premier League. So even if we were to go down this year, I don't think we are being run as irresponsibly as we were in that sort of 2014 to 2017 period, and long may it continue.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. At least because it's all about how you end up running yourself as a club and how you end up not running. I mean, if you compare, I mean, not to make too many comparisons to last time, but you think, well, look at the state we were when we went down, and you look at now, and to some extent, we do have to acknowledge the Premier League has shifted considerably, considering when we in that 8 years, and in many ways, from a financial point of view and from a PSR point of view, it feels like we probably picked the worst time to have 8 years out of the Premier League, because that's really when it started to shift towards the money-driven approach. I mean, obviously, I know it's about money to a degree, but I mean this extends. But no, you are right. I think we have ran ourselves to the point where, if we do go down, we have a couple of players from a PSR perspective that we can sell for, have assets we can sell, and therefore make sure we're not in any trouble. Like, if you look at I mean, I know this was built up over a number of years, but look at the problems Leicester are facing right now, for example. I don't see, unless something really goes wrong, but even then I don't think that'll happen. It's like, I don't see that happening with us. But as far as the start of the season's concerned, and I'll actually quickly touch on this, right? Because this is me mate Peter, who actually is the lad I was on about, who's a Geordie. So I will spoil that for him, but we do have good conversations about this. As we keep saying, Michael, and I've said this constantly, aim for 40 points. If so-called smaller clubs, who of course, the likes of Brentford, Brighton and Bournemouth have earned that through merit, have done what they've done. Sunderland, with all due respect to them, the size of the club we are, if we run ourselves properly, the sky could very well be the limit. Obviously, there will come a point when players will outgrow us and will move to bigger clubs than us, because as much as I may go on how big we are, there are bigger clubs, unfortunately, than Sunderland in the pyramid, and always will be. But it's a fair question. With a similar successful business model, why can't we say, dare I say, sound delusional, long-term challenge for European places, or challenge to have a good cup run? Obviously, that's not going to be this season. I know there's Mike, who I've told you before, there was a podcast I'm on that people will know on here called Midweek Mackems, who tries to convince us that we're going to finish 5th. And I'm like, mate, it's survival. We're still, I don't know if you watched Little Britain, but there's a clip from Little Britain where one of the characters goes, "Oh dear Lord, he's getting delusional." So that's what we always end up saying. It's like, no, mate, it's bottom 6. It's bottom 6. We're probably, because I agree with you. I think you tweeted a while back, we're still probably going to be bottom 6, and I agree with you. So. I think we will be. But I do have faith we can definitely stay up. But as Pete said, and I've said, I don't know what you think. For me, it's 40 points is what we've got to aim for. And as far as I'm concerned, just you want to keep going. We need 29 points. We need 24 points. We need 22 points. You want that to keep coming gradually down to the point where you go, thank God we're safe.
Yeah, no, exactly. And actually, it's been lower than 40 points for quite a while now. So it's a nice target to aim for. But yeah, Peter's comment is completely right. I'd say on a few of those clubs, Brentford, have kind of, they never really were in danger of relegation except for the one year where they had massive injury issues, and I think Tony had just departed, and that was quite challenging for them. Bournemouth came up and then did go back down, but they did have a very good manager in Eddie Howe. I think everyone admits that, even from a Sunderland persuasion, that he's clearly a very good manager. And then Bournemouth as well have, appointed a top manager in Antonio Raiola after the kind of Gary O'Neill saved them for a little bit, and it was quite a controversial decision to fire him. I remember also from a Brighton perspective when they fired Chris Hughton after he'd got them survival.
That was questioned quite a lot, wasn't it?
People were really questioning it. It was the same when Southampton got rid of Nigel Atkins and brought in Pochettino. And it was the same when Hughton was fired from Brighton and they brought in Graham Potter. And then Graham Potter was upgraded with Roberto De Zerbi. And now they've got Fabian Herzler, and they've lost a number of top talents over the years, but they've managed to self-sustain really effectively. And a lot of those clubs are clearly taking a pretty data-led approach, which I think by the look of Sunderland's business this summer, it looks like, we're finding real sort of hidden gems, let's say, in lots of the deals, and mixing it with real top level experience. The fact that Ronaldo had played for Atletico Madrid for, I think it was 3 seasons, played in the Champions League with Lille. Xhaka needs no introduction, but Mukiele has played for a number of top clubs as well. Adingra obviously had Premier League experience with Brighton. There was a real nice mix of profiles and experience levels brought in by Sunderland. And so, long may it continue. In terms of staying up this year, I am fairly realistic. I think as organised as we look, I think we will struggle to score heaps and heaps of goals in every game. I had some doubts just because I hadn't seen him perform against, top level defences, what Wilson Isidore would be able to translate to the Premier League. But I probably shouldn't have had too many doubts. I mean, he has been incredibly clinical at the moment. His shots are relatively low, but his conversion rate is through the roof right now, which might not be sustainable across an entire season.
Yeah, you'd expect it wouldn't be.
Yeah, and I think Mayenda looks like he could definitely have some impacts in games as well. But again, they're quite similar profiles in many ways. So I'm intrigued about when Brian Brobby gets up to full fitness, whether he can make an impact as well, who's much more of a kind of sort of hold-up player, target man, has had some great years in the Champions League and with Ajax. So I do think we've got a really nice range of strikers, but it doesn't feel like we've got the sort of striking talent and wing talent necessarily to get up into mid-table this year. I think we do have to be kind of realistic. I mean, you look at how a few bad weeks for a club like Villa or Newcastle or even Fulham, who've been in the Premier League for so long, invested for years and years and years in 20 million, 30 million pound plus signings, how tight it's been for them even at the start of this season. And I suppose it's really the next 10 weeks or so before January that I think feels absolutely massive. Obviously, the Wolves game coming up is huge. It doesn't really need to be described anything other than that. But our fixture list after that is really difficult. I think of our next 8 games, 6 are against sides currently in the top 8, and then we play Newcastle. And that's in mid-December, and then comes January and AFCON. So this is where we're going to be tested more than ever. But I've taken so much confidence from our performances against sides that have had really good seasons in the past. Crystal Palace have been brilliant for the last 6-7 months. Villa, have obviously been competing in Europe for a number of years now as well. We were very competitive in that game.
With 10 men as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So it really doesn't feel like we're going to be... there will obviously be maybe the 1 or 2 of these per season, but it doesn't feel like we're going to be on the hands of too many thrashings. Whereas in our former days in the Premier League, I remember maybe 3-4 matches a season where we'd be battered sort of 4-0, 3-0, 5-1. It was pretty bleak. I mean, even yesterday I was doing another podcast and they were asking me, what was your favourite game that ultimately meant nothing? And I suggested a derby game. I think it's October 2013-14. And it was the Barini derby game where Altidore lays it off to him and he fires it into the top right corner. It was the first derby I ever went to. Amazing moment. And ultimately, it meant very little. We finished 14th that year. Gus Poyet had just taken over. But I was looking at our form going into that game. We hadn't won any of our opening 7 or 8 games. I think we'd lost all but one of them. We'd been beaten by sides like Palace, West Brom, Swansea. Swansea, the game before that game, we lost 4-0 away. So it does feel like just a completely different set of circumstances to when we were previously in the Premier League. We feel so much more competitive in every game, and it's seriously refreshing.
No, I agree with you. It is, and I think, and obviously I didn't get into football until I probably was like early 20s, so it was 2011ish or something I got into it actually. And I think all I'd known really was Sunderland just sort of scrape for, well, avoid relegation effectively. And then obviously double relegations, 4 years in League One, 8 years out of the Prem. So maybe it's my own fault that we've started, that I've not seen much until this point. But you are right, though. I think if you look at all the games, I mean, I think until the turn of the year, and obviously, as you'll know yourself, Wolves still have a lot of quality, even though they're bottom of the league, and I don't expect them to finish bottom. Whether they go down or not, I don't know, but I don't think they'll be bottom of the division. So there is that one to consider. But like you said, after, I think you've got to include playing Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City twice, Tottenham, and then obviously Newcastle. Bournemouth are a really good team. Everton have obviously got really good quality. Fulham's no slouch. There's no slouch games pretty much. Then Brighton away in that as well, and that's all before the first game of January, I believe it is. But I do agree with you. I think in the sense, I mean, obviously is there a part of you that's sort of concerned about the AFCON thing? Because I know everyone's obviously going to lead on with that, because a lot of our players have obviously signed for AFCON. My suspicion is that we've signed these players because although they are going to miss at most up to, I think it's 6 games, something like that anyway, half a dozen games, I do think that we back them to do enough. We do back them to do enough in the 85% of games, or whatever percentage it is, that they're here to do a job. But obviously AFCON is a worry, but hopefully we're on enough points before then, so the point where we're not affected too much by it. And what does help is I think we played Tottenham away, Man City at home, and to a lesser extent Brighton away, which are games that are we likely to win any of them anyway? No, probably not. Maybe a point here and there, maybe at Brighton if we're very lucky, but I wish we weren't playing Leeds and Brentford in there. I'm not gonna lie, because I think they're games for me that because I don't know if you, but if you're like me, you look at the games and go, need to get something there, need to get something out of that, need to get something out of that. But but what do you reckon on the AFCON thing?
Yeah, I think it's mainly in midfield where you have concerns, but then you'd hope by that stage, Dan Neil has played a little bit more Premier League football. Chris Rigg is.
Here's Jack, by the way. Sorry, I just had to get that in there. He's a good lad.
Oh, very good, nice one, Jack. But you'd hope by the end of, you'd hope by the start of January that Dan Neil's played a lot more Premier League football, that Chris Rigg could step into midfield. Our forward line doesn't look like it's going to be too badly affected. Like Enzo Lefebvre will still be there. Mundell will hopefully be back to full fitness. We'll still have Isidore, Mayenda, Brobby, Talby won't be going. So
Rigg as well, probably.
Rigg as well. So, Talby will be going, but Rigg probably won't. Rigg definitely won't be.
I was going to say, if he's English, he probably won't.
No, he won't.
Unless he's injured, he'll play.
Ronaldo will probably be going, but I think by that stage, maybe you could cover with Sirkin. So there are, and I think that's partly why we probably didn't offload as many of the non-AFCON players towards the end of the window that maybe some Sunderland fans were expecting, preparing for that January. And given the fact we've got leeway with PSR, we'll probably have leeway with our wage budget now, because it was the most lucrative year to ever get promoted, given the fact that Sky have this new TV rights deal, etc. They must have, given how clever they were across the entire window, thought this through. And the way that rival fans were like, oh, Sunderland haven't thought about AFCON. There is no way in hell that club executives, however big their teams are, 15 to 20 people probably across the transfer committee and, organising deals and scouting, etc., didn't consider the ramifications of AFCON.
It'd be very naive if they hadn't.
It would be incredibly naive. And a lot of the nations that they represent, no disrespect to the nations they represent, they're probably not going to be getting to the semi-finals and finals. So I'm not too concerned by it, but it's just unfortunate that our really difficult sort of set of fixtures in December, where we play, I think it's Man City twice and Liverpool and Leeds and Brighton, as you mentioned, that comes just beforehand. So we need to capitalise on that period as much as possible. But I think the slightly frustrating thing about the league this year, and I'm almost pleased because it has been a really uncompetitive relegation battle for a number of years, but now you're in it, I don't want it to be as competitive as it is. You kind of want a whipping boy, and it doesn't feel like there's any terrible sides in it. There's no Sheffield United, there's no Southampton, no disrespect to them from the last couple of years. So it does feel like Wolves, Burnley, Brentford, Leeds, ourselves, and probably one of West Ham and Forest are the teams that are going to be in the discussion. I might change my opinion on that in 3-4 game weeks if we've picked up another 6 points or so, but it does feel like we'll be in the bottom 6 sides. And I think that's kind of realistic to expect in your first year back in the Premier League. So, yeah, we can't get ahead of ourselves, but at the moment, I'm just so pleased that we've got a side that represents the fan base so effectively now, that all the players seem to really care and want to be at Sunderland and care about the success of the club, because that wasn't always the case.
Oh, that last bit, yeah, it definitely wasn't the case. I remember saying the relegation seasons. I thought there was a big cultural problem at Sunderland, but yeah, but that's a whole other story. I think a couple of points are. I think one of the things that I think you'll probably agree with is I think in the games where we're going to lose as well. Yeah, okay, maybe away at Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, or even at home to those sides, possibly. There is a good chance we get beat comfortably. But I think as long as, to me, a thrashing is a 3-goal loss or more. And so I think if games we are going to lose, and obviously we've lost to Burnley and Man United already, but in the games we're going to lose, I think it's also important to not get absolutely steamrolled, because another factor is goal difference. At the end of the season, that could play a significant role in. I mean, I doubt it. I don't know how many times the team stayed up in the Premier League on goal difference, but I remember there was that one season in 2010-11 when you had like 5 teams, like what was it, West Ham, Birmingham, Wigan, Blackburn, Blackpool, I think it was. No, West Ham were already down then, weren't they? Who's the other team involved?
It's
Oh,
an amazing memory. You're testing me there.
I was going to say, yeah, but I remember I remember watching the match. I think it was on YouTube actually. It was the match of the day coverage of that final day, and it went from like 1 goal sends Blackburn up to like 15th, then another goal sends like Birmingham down to 19th, then they go and score a goal, then it shoots them up to 16th or whatever it is. So I think it probably is an anomaly that it's settled by goal difference, but goal difference nevertheless could be massive. And another thing that you mentioned, even with the PSR situation, and this is why for me we absolutely have to stay up this year if we want to progress to where I want us to be as a club, which for me is regular top half. But again, I can't get ahead of myself. We've been out of the Prem for 8 years, and there's obviously a lot of clubs that, even clubs like, say, West Ham, for example, or clubs who've got their own issues. West Ham at the end of the window, at the summer window, just went, oh, here, no problem, Southampton, here's £42 million for Matthias Fernandes. And I'm like, we can't do that.
No,
We
exactly.
can't do that yet. Diarra, what was it, 30 million, but that was pretty much an outlier, wasn't it? So, but yeah, I mean, so it is going to be an interesting test to see where we are come when AFCON hits. Me personally, I would take being on around 20 points by the time AFCON starts, if we can reach it. To do that, we would need to get, I think it's like 2 wins and 3 draws or 3 wins. Now, obviously, it's not as easy as that, but I think, I also think as well, do you think January could be a really big month? Not just for spending, and I'll get onto that in a minute, but because in the fixture terms, apart after Spurs, and these games obviously are no cakewalk by any means, but you got like Brentford away after Spurs, then Palace at home. Palace, by the way, that point of Palace is looking like a better result day by day
Absolutely.
now. Then I think it's West Ham away, who I do expect to improve under Nuno. I'll be surprised if they don't. And then Burnley at home. Is January a big for equally how hard December's going to be? January feels a critical month to me, fixture wise.
Yeah, absolutely. At that stage, the season kind of mirrors itself, and you kind of go through the same sort of
Yeah,
pattern of fixtures. So,
you're
yeah, I
over
mean,
halfway at that point, aren't you?
well, exactly. So, I mean, we did have statistically, I think, the easiest start of any promoted side in. I think it might have been in Premier League terms ever, given the where they finished the season before in the league. So we had to capitalise on the start. We did. But yeah, we'll have to do the same in January. I mean, you mentioned some teams there. I think Burnley do have American ownership now. I would have thought they can invest a little bit more in January. If Leeds are in trouble, I imagine they'll get the checkbook out. Same with Nottingham Forest for sure. I mean, Evangelos Marinakis literally can't afford to be relegated, given how damaging that'll be to his reputation, given the fact he fired Nuno after they'd got 4 points from their opening 3 games so far this season. So yeah, there's some sides that really can't afford to go down. And Brentford also made a big call in that Thomas Frank agreed to join Spurs. I think it was in the early June, and they had an entire summer to sort out who they wanted to come in. And they went, look, we're backing the guy that's been coaching us in set pieces for a number of seasons now, who had no top flight experience whatsoever. So that was a big call from Brentford as well. And the way they've really found hidden gems or people that have been had once, looked like they're on a really strong trajectory before drifting off, like a sort of
Yeah.
Mikael Damsgaard. I'd be very surprised if Brentford, if they were still in the mix of relegation in January, weren't able to strike pretty quickly. But in terms of where we'd look to strengthen, it's difficult because it's such early days and we're not a side that's dominating possession right now. But I wonder whether you'd look for maybe a little bit more of an experienced winger, although Bertrand Traore, I suppose, is that concept. I don't think I've not been super impressed with Simon Adingra just yet. but I don't want to write him off just yet either. I think Talby's looked incredibly comfortable in possession, but not that creative just yet. And most of the sort of glory from our start to the season, I think, has to go down to our midfielders, particularly Xhaka and Siddiqui, now that Diarra's out as well. And then the strength of Roofs, Alderete, Mukiele. I'm slightly concerned as well that Troy Hume is going to get red carded at some stage in the next few weeks as well. Some of the challenges that he's been putting in, brilliant for the crowd, but I think he could be in trouble. Some of them have been a bit full on, let's say.
Full-blooded, yes.
Full-blooded. He's got the ball a lot, and yeah, he has. They've been legal, but kind of on the edge of where I'd want him to go ferocity-wise, which does slightly concern me too. But we've got Ronaldo coming back soon as well. But yeah, it doesn't look like we'll be looking to add a striker necessarily in January, because I think we do have enough quality in that position, and we've also spent a fair amount on Brian Brobby. I think we'd maybe look for a more experienced winger that could come in and really hit the ground running. But then I don't want to write off Adingra, Traore, Talby. Mundell looked really bright last year before his injuries as well, and I think he could translate it to Premier League level. Enzo Lefay's obviously got so much quality, worked so hard. So I don't want to write anything off just yet. But January fixture-wise, you're right, it's going to be huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, Jack, I do have your number, funnily enough. Not to make that sound romantic on here to discuss Dougie too much. I want to quickly touch on the... you mentioned it earlier about statistically we had the easiest start of the Premier League ever. And if you've seen me across social media, this is something I've been getting quite fed up of hearing from a lot of opposition fans going, oh, Sunderland's had an easy start. And I feel like... And I was talking to Matt, the Coventry YouTuber, yesterday, great lad, by the way, but he was mentioning that, and it might have been off camera, I think, that if you look at compared to someone like Burnley have had a very hard start fixture-wise. In fairness to them, I think they've done well to get the amount of points that they have. They beat us, rather annoyingly, but they beat us, and that was a game they absolutely had to win. They got a point against Forest, and I don't care if Ange Postologu's there or not. It's an established Premier League team. You've still come from behind to get something, even if it is at home. So I think they do deserve some credit for that. Although equally, I think we then deserve more credit for going at the City ground and getting a win. But either, Burnley have had a hard start. Leeds have obviously had to play Arsenal and Tottenham within that fixture list. Newcastle, Everton, they're no mugs either. So I think, but I am at that in Bournemouth as well. Can't believe I forgot to mention them. But for me, I don't know what do you think about this whole thing? Sunderland only have the points they do because of the fixtures that they've had. Because to me, I could have got it a month ago when we played, West Ham, Burnley and Brentford in the first three, wasn't it? The first three Premier League games. I could have understood it then, even if I didn't agree with it. But now when you've gone to Palace away, well, the FA Cup holders and are in Europe, away from home, kept a clean sheet. The only team, I believe, that's kept a clean sheet against Palace at Sellers Park this season so far. Might be in all competitions, but I might be wrong on that. Dougie's the expert with these things, I'm sure. Then you've got Villa. Look, I know Villa had started poorly, but look at their quality, man. It's much better than probably a lot of the bottom six teams you expect to be down there are going to have, with 10 men for an hour. Forest away, okay, there's the Ange factor, but again, if Burnley deserve credit for drawing against them at home, we deserve more for going away from home and winning. And Man United, okay, fair enough. That's that. But that was a game I never felt we would win anyway. But I feel like we don't get enough of the credit that we deserve to get for the start we've had, regardless of the fixtures.
Yeah, I think people love to spin any narrative that they can find. It's such early days in this Premier League season. Everyone's really trying to find narratives that they can agree in or find something to. A lot of people also criticised our business in the summer. Said we'd spent too much money, said we brought in too many players, and I think they're probably feeling a little bit silly after the start we've made. And probably
often they gel together that quickly, is it?
Well, exactly. And they probably want to... I mean, Forest struggled for years with the amount of players they signed. And yes, it was a slightly different scale to Sunderland, but we signed 15 players, I think it was, in the summer. It was a huge, huge influx of talent. And yeah, so I think there's probably just a little bit of embarrassment from some rival fans. And look, you can paint it any way you want. I think I agree with you. I think the first three games, I was hoping to capitalise and get some points. I was also really nervous. I just didn't know how this side would look early doors.
Because they're the games you need to get something from to stay up, aren't they?
I mean, exactly. And then even the West Ham game, they had, I think the first half was fairly even. They had a spell where they were really on top and the XG was fairly even across the game, but our finishing was amazing. And we scored two phenomenal headers, obviously low quality chances that don't often get scored. Scored an amazing goal on the counter-attack as well. And you're off and you're now building a little bit of momentum. And the way they've responded since that defeat to Burnley, which must have been a bit of a stomach punch as well, I think suggests that this team is not going to be easily knocked off its stride. And it does feel like I think we can go into these games coming up with a fair amount of confidence. I mean, Arsenal have a phenomenal record against sides towards the bottom end of the table, and look like a really complete side. And at 60 minutes, they can rotate really, really effectively and change it up in terms of the majority of their forwards and midfielders. And that's going to be a really difficult game. But I think we can definitely get at Chelsea. I think they've shown on numerous occasions over the last 2-3 years that they can slip up against the so-called smaller sides. Wolves does feel massive. I don't want people to underestimate how difficult that's going to be. I think their performances have really picked up in the last couple of games as well. There's still some players in there like Andre in midfield and João Gomez. That's a really intimidating unit to come up against. Xhaka and Siddiqui and probably Rig will have to be at their absolute best in that game as well. Jorgen Strand-Larsen is a really difficult striker for any defenders to kind of pick up and dominate, although I'd back kind of Alderete and Mukiele to kind of sort out and mix it with most forwards in the Premier League at the moment. So yeah, I think people are kind of a little bit, maybe, I think a lot of neutrals wanted us to get up, but they obviously don't want to see Sunderland go above their clubs. They don't want to see Sunderland make the Premier League sort of think twice about how to act in a summer and the kind of players to target and how many players is acceptable to bring in, etc. So I think it's just a lot of online chat and generally Twitter and TikTok and Instagram and comment sections. They're filled with people just looking to wind people up. So I try not to rise to it too much.
No, it's fair enough. I wish I was like that, but yeah, I kind of get it when Newcastle fans say it, because it actually doesn't bother me, because it's like, well, it's a rivalry thing. Our fans are going to be just as much then.
Well, exactly.
It's more when fans of Leeds and Burnley that I've seen a few of them say it. I'm like, hang on, you two should know how tough this league is. So why are you all of a sudden saying that we've only done well because of our start? But I do get it. And to be fair, to quickly touch on the promoted clubs, because where we need to head off soon enough, but with the promoted clubs, to be fair to them, all three of them, I think, have started well. And I think what I struck from not just Sunderland, but Leeds and Burnley as well, though, is that they all kind of went and looked, right, last couple of seasons, this is what we cannot do under any circumstances. So if, for example, you had Vincent Kompany at Burnley in 23-24 or Russell Martin last season, stick to your way and try to outplay the Premier League results in relegation, pretty much, if you don't have the players. So I have actually been quite impressed with how all three have competed.
Yeah, 100%. I think Burnley have surprised me most of all. I remember saying before a ball was kicked that I thought Burnley were nailed on for 20th, which I'm sorry, I probably got that wrong. I think it will be competitive. I think they'll probably go down if I had to pick any of the newly promoted sides to say they look most likely, just because I still think they look slightly short of goals. I wasn't totally impressed with the amount of money they spent on someone like Armando Broja, who's not been particularly fit for a number of years now. But they've got a really competitive midfield with Florentino Luis and Leslie Ogachukwu. And then Leeds, I think they clearly went, our strength this season is going to be sort of physical capacity and physically dominating sides. They signed a number of players over 6'2". Anton Stack looks brilliant. I think Jakob Bijol will be a really good addition at centre-back as well. I know Goodmanson made that mistake a few weeks ago with that own goal, but I generally think he's been pretty solid at left-back. Noah Okafor's already looked significantly brighter for Leeds than he ever did over in Serie A with Milan. Again, it feels like all three sides, their biggest issue will probably be goals rather than being torn open and left to, regret silly mistakes in terms of conceding goals. But yeah, I think Leeds and Sunderland have looked the more impressive side so far. And the fact that Nottingham Forest are down there having just changed manager, and that is a pretty desperate situation, as in they can't really get that wrong. The fact West Ham, as you mentioned, are already down there as well, which, given their individual player quality, the likes of Jared Bowen, Paquetá, even Fulkrug if he gets going as well, I can't really see West Ham going down. So it does feel like it's going to be the newly promoted sides and probably Brentford fighting it out. And even like Fulham and Aston Villa that are down there at the moment, I really can't imagine it. So I do think we will drop down, and I just don't want people to panic if come the end of November, middle of December, we're kind of much closer to the relegation zone than we are now, because I think there's every chance that could happen. But if we carry on playing like this, I just think we'll be in every game, which is kind of what you want going into the final 15, 20 minutes, especially given the fact that having signed so many players in the summer, our bench looks pretty strong, and there are different options on that bench to try and mix it up, especially against hard defences. Like if you're putting on Mayenda or Isidore in the final 15, 20 minutes, no one wants to play against that sort of pace and running threat in behind. So I think there's a chance that we'll be scoring some late goals, as we did at the end of last season, of course, with that Ballard and Watson goal.
Yeah, I think, well, the phrase where we took the phrase till the end a little bit too literally for my heart rate. But yeah, I do take the point. Well, okay, then there's two last questions I'll ask you there. The first and foremost is, if Sunderland are to stay up, that would require, I would still think that requires us finishing above Leeds and Burnley. Um, but if that's the case, which of the established clubs is most likely to replace us in the bottom three in that sense? I know it sounds like I'm saying we're going to go down, but you know what? I hope people get the point I'm getting at.
Yeah. If I had to say right now, I'd go Brentford. I did have them down before the start. I just think it's very, very difficult to lose your manager and two of your best players in the same
And your
window.
captain as well.
Yeah, Norgard and Bumo. They lost Flecken as well. Kelleher's probably a step up goalkeeper wise on Flecken, but Flecken did have a brilliant year last year as well. That is just so much change, and I don't know how anyone could kind of be surprised if they were in relegation sort of trouble. I did think I've watched them a few times this season, and I only caught the second half of their game against City last weekend, but they were really well organised without carrying too much threat. That game was dreadful, and I mean, City's struggles this season is another conversation entirely. I do think Haaland's covering up a lot of their deficiencies. But yeah, I'll go with Brentford also being down there as well.
Okay, then. And then the last question we'll sort of touch on is, does your gut feeling as of right now, and I'm going to say this with the leniency that it will be subject to change depending if we get injuries, depending on what happens in the form, does your gut say we stay up as of right now, even if that might change in the future?
Oh yeah, my gut is 100%. It's totally
Is that
behind me.
that or that? Or
Yeah,
is it a mixture of both?
that's definitely more heart than head for sure. I don't know how we should all be confident right now. We should let's go in with this with a lot of confidence. I do think Sunderland's team, particularly at the Stadium of Light, it's a really it can make all the difference. The crowd and the Stadium of Light is going to have to be the key weapon this year. And the way that it can sort of galvanize a side, carry it on, give it so much momentum, energy, etc. I want everyone to go to those games at home thinking we can win any game at home, and if we nick enough points away from home, we'll be safe. So yeah, as it stands right now, I don't know how you couldn't be more than 50% in your heart sure. Head is it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a massive challenge. I saw people talking about Europe. I saw people talking about comfortable top 10 finishes. I would be amazed if we finish in the top 10 this year. I really, really would.
Yeah.
I
I'd
just
love
think
it,
there's
but I
too
don't
much quality.
expect it.
I don't expect it either. So at the moment, I'm just enjoying the journey. Wolves feels massive, and then beat Wolves, hopefully, and then we go in with a lot of confidence into some of those bigger games, and hopefully we create some memories and pull off some results that we'll remember forever.
Yeah, well, I think that's the big thing, especially at the Stadium of Light thing. If you look at that, like West Ham, the Cauldron of Noise, that was Brentford last minute winner. Aston Villa point with 10 men, and like I said, look, Wolves will be tricky. I think the main thing for me out of that game is, I want to win it, but at the very least, you want to keep the gap to Wolves to the same as it is now. I think it's 9 points, I believe, at the minute, with them being on 2, us being on 11. So it's important to get results in these sort of games. And as I said earlier, with games against Wolves, and later on down the line, Leeds, Burnley, or Brentford away, West Ham away, stuff like that, or Leeds away even, those are the games that are going to determine for me if we're going to, how much of a chance we've got. I do actually, I said at the start of the season, I think I said Leeds, Burnley, and Brentford to go down, because I still think I mean Leeds. I think both Leeds and Burnley have impressed me. Another player for Leeds that I think actually is decent for them is Longstaff. I don't think he's actually a bad player for. I think he's actually a pretty good signing for them. I think Brentford have lost. I don't think enough has been made of how much Brentford have lost in the summer. And I mean, like it could have been like you lose that over a few windows, but they've lost like top goal scorer, second top goal scorer, captain, manager, all in one window. And I think that's still quite a lot. But look, it is going to be tight. It's going to be a tight relegation battle. It's going to be really stressful at the moment most of the times. I'm like that every game. I'm enjoying the season, but I'm also stressing my head out about it because I am desperate for us to stay up this season. So I'm almost like, okay, how many more points do we need to get to 40? And then, even every week, that the good thing about last week, even though we lost, I was thinking, right, Wolves didn't win. West Ham, Brentford, Leeds, Burnley all lost. Okay, that's good. That's good. Keep them down there. But last question I'll ask you, obviously for the great work you do for Sky Sports, obviously I'm aware it's going to be hard for you to get to many Sunderland games. Has there been any games, particularly at the Stadium of Light, that you're trying to get yourself to this season?
Yeah, I've been trying to go. I've been looking this week actually. Arsenal is the game that I've got on my mind. 8th of November. I was looking at trains though, and it's a 5:30 kickoff, and it would be a 12-hour journey back. I think I'd get back to London the next day, so I'm potentially thinking about hiring a zip car and driving up from where I live in London. Fulham away in a couple of weeks as well. I've annoyingly, I have to work every 2 weekends, and I've had so many weddings at the start of this year. The pain of being, I mean, the pain, they're brilliant fun, but
No, but I know what you mean, yeah.
being in your early 30s, there's a lot of weddings going on. So I'm looking forward to catching more Sunderland games going forward. But yeah, Arsenal's the one that I think I'll get to first.
Not even the 13th of December.
I mean, that would be amazing. I just don't think I'll be able to get tickets. This is another factor. I've joined the Sunderland supporters branch down here, which last year got access to loads of tickets, and they now can't get access through the club. The demand is just absolutely massive. And the kind of issue, although it does make sense, is if you've never been able to get tickets consistently, you've had to buy them through someone else, so you never get enough points to ever kind of
Because
get
then their points keeps going up, and then
their points go up and you never manage to
exactly.
accumulate it. So short of buying a season ticket, which I'd love to do one day, but given the fact I work every second weekend and live in London, I probably can't do it at the moment. Short of doing that, I don't know how I'm going to get to that many games. It's just going to be beg, borrow, steal sort of thing. So we'll see.
Yeah, I love that phrase. Beg, borrow, steal. It's great. Right, Dougie, we'll leave it there. I would have asked you what. I'm really sorry I didn't ask you more about how you got to where you've got to at Sky Sports and the work on. But maybe we'll get you back on at some point.
Well, exactly.
Plenty more. There's no reason we can't.
Happen.
Exactly. And if you're up for it, we'll get you on later in the season, and we'll talk about maybe. Hopefully, we're looking very pessimistic about the idea Europe is never going to is not happening, or top 10's not going to happen. But all joking aside, 17th is the success this season, because I could see us with the right recruitment really kicking on from here. But let's stay up first, guys. Thanks ever so much thanks Doug for your time. It's been much appreciated, and thanks to everyone who's watched. And as you know the drill, if you've seen this video and you're not subbed and you think I've earned it, then subscribe. That would be lovely. And yes, let's get through this awful international weekend, and then we'll get back to the Steamer like next week and hopefully get a good result against Wolves. Away the lads.